This area of the text was written by the PMs before me. I actually haven't dove into this so much yet. However, we want to make navigational structures that are in tune with the user's needs and representative of numerous workflows of our community of users. So unlike other features, everybody's using navigation, every persona. So it's a very broad user set that we have. And so even though we don't have jobs to be done yet, I think at some point defining those global things that everyone does, such as reply to a comment, search for something, all of those we need to keep in mind when we're working with how we build out navigation. And it's a big challenge. So the SUS feedback's really important to us to see how people feel within the app and how they use it. And I think that's just key, though, that we're in tune with the user's needs. It's a lot of users and it's a lot of personas. And so we just have to make sure that we're mindful of that. This is another point that GitLab can be customized and configured to meet a wide variety of use cases. So that's what we're talking about there. We can't just go make navigation work great for plan customers or product managers. We have to think about one engineer working on their own using GitLab. Does it make sense to them?
I do want to ask, it seems like we started talking about settings and we talked about navigation. It's okay that settings and navigation is the same category, but when we're talking, I think it's really important to not couple them together because I think they're two different experiences. And as you mentioned, navigation, everyone navigates throughout the product, but settings, I don't think everyone has access to. So it would be helpful to me to kind of on the direction page understand like what are we thinking for each one of them.
Agreed. Yeah, that's good. Because this has been so much content to ramp on over the last 6 months or so, as I've been like getting up to speed, the settings portion, we said we're not working on that right now. So like I have not dove in on settings to the level I have on navigation, which has been necessary. So I agree that we should have, I think it should be a separate feature at some point, the two working together, but there are a lot of use cases that are specific, especially to maintainers or admins or people who have access to settings. So they aren't entering we are doing North Star vision on navigation and we're keep leaving settings to the side, although we are still thinking about it as we go through. We just are not as deep onto settings right now. But I will try to make this a little more clear around that portion that we do recognize that it's used by specific personas or levels of permission for the settings areas. So where we're headed. So we've come to a really great plan, I feel, around how we move forward with navigation. It's hard because there aren't that many issues where people are saying something really direct about what they want, like other features, but we do look at the SUS data. We see how people are feeling about using GitLab in general. And so the three things that we're doing right now is we're doing our North Star vision. And so that is, Austin did 6 designs that are like the North Star vision for how GitLab could be. So they changed the nav entirely. One of them has it all on the left nav like Slack. One of them has breadcrumbs in the top bar. There's six ways that are kind of like a big shot at what GitLab could be. And now they're doing extensive testing to bring that down to 2, which we would then make better and keep iterating on. The way we're tying that back to our users is a little different than other features. We've created SUS themes and we did an exploration, and Tori helped lead this, where essentially we categorized everything in the verbatims into 3 major themes that we felt high confidence in. So minimize feeling overwhelmed and orienting users across the platform were the 2 high confidence themes we saw. And then here below where we are grouping some ideas and themes that we see internally, like left nav sidebar options, customization requests, aligning destinations with expectations. We're grouping things that we could do under that theme. There's also some themes that didn't make it into high confidence or over the bar, like building confidence in search, uniform experience, meeting users where they are, but the 3 that we chose are what we are using over here to test our North Star vision. So the questions that they've constructed with the UXR all center around, do you feel overwhelmed? Do you know where you are? Can you pick up where you left off? Like, let's say you got a comment from your boss and you got to go reply. So those are all tying us back into kind of what we heard from Sus. And so we'll continue. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question here. With these themes, I like where you're going, as far as making it like a user-centered problem. How do you know when you're done solving for the minimize feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, so the hard thing is that because Sus is a lag metric, there isn't going to be like an immediate uptick. I mean, it would be cool if there was, but it's probably like a very slow, big boat to turn around in the water. And so I think once we get going, we'll be able to A/B test or to have feature flagged alternate menus where we can get immediate feedback from people in the UI as they're working. So if they turn on that alternate navigation, they try it, we can get their feedback and see how they feel and do testing that's not just in a prototype, but actually in the app. That's the only way I think that we could ask people actually how it's working for them.
So if I'm understanding correctly, then on the designs, you would center your questions around this, but then the ultimate measure of when you're done is through Sus.
So I think through Sus and through some more user testing and surveys when the feature drops and we start
Understood.
putting it into the app, because that's when we'll really know. The usertesting.com is really going to help us nail down the direction, but there might be nuances and things that we miss that only really is apparent when you start using it in GitLab.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be important to have a way for you to measure the impact that you have with nav, right? Because there's a lot of other ways that people might be feeling overwhelmed that they express in Sus. Do you know what I mean? So you want to be able to segment out your impact versus everything else in
Yeah,
some
and
way.
if you have a good proposal on that, I'd be open to hearing it. It's a very hard thing to decouple the two and like make sure that it was because of nav. And then the other thing that's really hard with nav, and I don't know if any of you have launched ones before, but like there's this trend. For 6 months, people are like, who moved my cheese and I hate this thing. And then they like it more after, but you actually go through a dip often when you make a major navigation change. And so like you can't even really rely on the feedback because people are just in that mode, which is normal. But just there's a lot of nuances to this around how we roll it out and how we get that feedback. So I would appreciate the support from both of you around that. And
I want to ask another question. I like the fact that we're thinking about A/B testing and rolling this out gradually and getting feedback and failing fast, but also fixing quickly. I do want to ask, and I want to take a step back again, because as you mentioned, navigation is everyone. Are we thinking about the different personas, how we're looking at the different personas? Specifically, I want to know, are we looking at the different users by tier? Because I asked them because historically, when we were looking at navigation, we were thinking about looking at the most popular menu items, and ultimate were not even represented in there. So I want to make sure that we're looking at this in the right way.
Yeah, so we are diving in. This is like a 6 to 9 month exploration of different personas it's called the diary study. And so the first one that we did was on Sasha, and then they did one on Parker, the product managers, and then the next one that's on hold right now, but that one's going to happen, that's on the Sam cohort. So we're deeply diving into the bigger personas around product teams like engineers and product managers, and making sure when we do this that what we build works for them. Again, it's hard, it's nuanced. People have really different things they do with navigation, or parts of nav. Maybe only product managers may only click on epics and issues and MRs the odd time, right? So we're keeping those things in mind when we're doing it. The core of our user base though is the Sasha, like the engineer. So like everything has to be able to work for that that person as well. So we're also keeping that in the back of our mind, that MRs and building out in the repo are the core. Does that answer the question? Like we are.
Well,
Yeah.
yes and no. Yes, because you decided, and I think that's a smart decision to focus on a primary persona, which is good. I just want to make sure that when we do decide to roll out experimentation and change navigational items, we also have data. I mean, Melissa made a fair point of segmenting who is in the test group and who is not, but also what type of user is this? And again, I'm going to use the ultimate example, because if I'm a security persona and now like all my security stuff has gone away, this could potentially affect revenue, and not only like the dissatisfaction of things moving around. Like
Yes.
people are very sensitive to UX changes. Like I still can't figure out where my to-do went, and all they did was put it like maybe an inch lower, and I'm like, oh no, where did it go? But then I found it eventually. But I think that we also need to make sure that we know which tier this is coming from. And I don't know if we have any way to kind of put a persona hat on a user based on their previous historical actions. Probably not. So it's more of a guesstimation.
Yeah, it's a guesstimation. I've been wanting persona from day one, and data, that's my biggest request. They don't really expose persona yet. So no one at GitLab gets that. However, tier was the first thing we broke our PI metrics by. So we are looking at the usage of left nav of everything else by the ultimate users versus premium and all of that. So it is something that we're looking at in the data. And that was the third thing. So like we've got our North Star, we've got the quarterly sus, which is lag, but will really help us with our themes. And then, as you mentioned, the data and the tracking, once we have the full instrumentation of the navigation, and we already can cut by tier, that will help us back up what we're hearing up here as we do these UXR studies. So it's the third leg of the stool essentially for the team. And I'm hoping if we get our data, like we want to get full coverage right now, if we get really good click tracking on SaaS, that we'll be able to do some way better studies of usage on that.
Orit, do you consider it to be sufficient if there's good representation in the user testing stuff, where basically they ensure they have like a wide range of personas, including security, for example, which would be only ultimate, right? And basically testing that everyone can find the things they normally use in like a reasonable way.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the best we can do right now. So I would definitely opt in to that.
Okay, so that's our themes. I know we're getting close to time and we're still in navigation. So like our target audience, we talked that through. It's pretty much everyone, but we'll be very mindful of getting those ultimate customer personas in. As I mentioned, we're working on the North Star vision. We're doing a repeatable research project. So this is pretty cool. There's going to be a repeatable test that we can do with every nav that we release that gets us feedback in a consistent way. So that's a UXR initiative. And then as well, the diary studies that I mentioned. So in terms of the North Star, and this, I'm looking, the formatting's a little off on this. I don't know why these are, I'm going to go in and fix this after. But how we move forward with our direction is once we have this, it's a big North Star vision, so that might change everything about Nav at GitLab. So how do we move forward and just go forward with our direction and break it down? So what we would end up doing is looking for 2 to 3 MVCs, working with the engineering team to break it down, how we're going to use the feature flag, or maybe like a settings opt-in on this new navigation and the rollout plan. So we would make sure that we did it iteratively, and that with each one, we're like looking at the data and we're testing, and we're also educating the users. And I need to put a bit more of that in there, but blog posts from the designers about why they decided to do this nav that's coming, getting more user engagement with the community, so everyone sees the big idea and doesn't just the common Who Moved My Cheese is going to come through, but we would have these resources to point them to help them understand kind of where we're going and take their feedback. So that's around breaking it down. And this is out of the wrong spot. The other goals we have right now are getting I mentioned our data to a point where we have everything tracked. And then the menu top bar, that one's also moving forward. That is the hamburger nav that drops down. That one we're testing and seeing what the right way is. That's in its second round of testing right now. That one should be within this next release. We'll be able to take that and break it down with engineering. But so far, everything has been user testing, everything has been design, and we haven't done anything in code for nav. As I mentioned, settings is not prioritized currently. We're tracking what we want to focus on. So I'll make sure adding the visibility of existing settings and alignment. Here's visible by permission, as you mentioned. So that is in there. But I'll tweak it and see if I can give it a little more juice. In terms of a maturity plan, I think at some point we could have this when we have jobs to be done. But it's not really like something that they're selling GitLab based on its navigation. If we launch features such as landing pages, dashboards, things like that, that could get into features that could be marketable in the future. But right in the near term, 6 to 9 months, there's nothing on the roadmap that is a marketable feature. Well, as I mentioned, there aren't many top user issues. We do have our insights from SUS and other areas, left side navigation and the UI polish that are related.
Kristen, can you go to the what's next and why?
Yes.
So when reading this, and I think I also asked this, like, what is the immediate issues that you are working on? Because I think they all link to epics, if I'm not mistaken, which are, is this like something that we want to do in a single milestone?
No, there's nothing, like everything is multi-milestone and fairly big right now.
So how can you break
Because
it down?
design. So there is a near-term navigation improvements epic, which I could link, but it's got the same stuff within it. So then the things that we're actually scheduling are the menu work, the re-implementation of the navigation tracking, which we've been doing for our PI data. And then it's all like that compelling vision plus the spike for the feature flag testing. So these are technically the things we're doing right now.
So when I read the what's next and why, regardless to the group, I want to understand what's happening in the next milestone, and it's really hard for me to understand from this direction page. And even when you explain it, I'm still not getting it. I understand there's big work, but we need to break it down somehow.
Okay, I'll make that more granular. To be honest, it's difficult for me to really iterate or it's so design heavy right now that and the schedules with UXR and everything, but I'll see if I can get it more into like a frank. We weren't even putting like release dates on them because we weren't really sure. It's been a lot of moving pieces when we started off the North Star vision. But I'll model off what's on the current board and I'll just get it in versus having those 3 main concepts being described here.
So like, I'm not that interesting in terms of the audience of the direction page, but how, like, how does the team know what they're working on? This is like the whole, I have a huge question mark on top of my head.
Yeah.
And like little Mario.
It's so the team, so let's just talk about the team. The engineering team is majorly focused. We haven't got to design system. So the build track that's going on is all design system work, not on nav. Our design team, and it's really cool. We have 3 designers now. So they are going forward, but for a long time, we weren't even putting milestones on their work because it wasn't delivering to customers. So it was like they're getting it ready and we would have a final that, like, I'm trying to track it to when we could have an engineer build it, like when would we implement the navigation? And they're building out issues and solution validation and all of the design issues. So I'm gonna put milestones on them, but we know what we're doing because we've been going through 6, like the design team is leading it. So 6 designs going through UXR. This week there's 24 videos that we're reviewing from the pilot. And I think I could include more of that information here. But
Yeah, that's what I was
it's weird
gonna.
because nothing's shipping on Nav. Nothing's shipping for probably another 2 to 3 months.
That's what I was gonna ask, Ori. I think if those, like what Kristen verbalized just now, was just crystallized into 2 or 3 bullet points. Like right now, the focus is research. Here's an way that you can see like what specific research activities we're doing like over the next 3 milestones. We expect we'll be done with that by this point. And then the other thing is that like the team's mostly focused on pajamas now, right? So that's why there's not a lot of like actual dev. So maybe if that was more clear in the what's next and why, would that be sufficient for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I read this, I'm not smarter in any way on what the team is working on. So I think if you put the focus and I like the fact that you're also stating what you're not working on, which is always helpful. That would be helpful. Yeah.
So our immediate focus is compelling North Star vision. We're aligning the team to the direction with the sus verbatims. We're mocking 6 mockups in 15.2 and testing in 15.3. We're tied it to our OKR efforts. Is that not clear enough on?
No, not at all. Also, we're past 15. We're already at 15.3. So
we
like
did them in 15.2 and we're testing right now in 15.3.
So again, like creating a North Star vision, that's good. It's okay. But like, here's what we're thinking. Here's what we've come up with thus far. Like this, it really depends who the audience of the direction page is. And in my mind, I always try to think about it as external audience versus internal, though probably a lot of the consumption is internal. But if you're thinking about an external reader using this, I have no idea what a diary study is.
Like, do you need to explain that?
No. I don't
okay.
I don't need to go into the details of everything. I just think it needs to be, to me, it's not clear what the team is working on. Creating a vision, that's great. I understand we're trying to figure out what we want to do in the next X months. Here's what, and you've already done research, you've already nailed down, like, here are the top pain points that we want to solve. Where are we at that? Like you've noticed that you've noted the 3 things that we want to work on. Where am I now? Yeah, there we go.
So these are all, I mean, this just recently came through like 2 weeks ago. We got this in, but these questions are what are getting worked on in this repeatable process and to test North Star.
Okay.
So I'll try to, because this is such a design heavy team, it is different from a lot of the other feature teams. And it's hard for me too. Like I haven't done this much UXR in my whole career. It's a lot. And it's like, so how do I explain this down? I'll try to take a stab at making it a bit more clear and maybe linking out and describing the value of some of these things from a higher level, just so it's more clear. But I am a little bit of a fish out of water of like how much design we have to do and how much validation ahead of engineering. So that's good feedback that this doesn't track. I'll try to make a little more clear bullets here around the scheduled epics. Most of them are epics that UXR owns, but I'll just get them on here.
Okay, great. One other thing that I'm missing here, I don't know, this is a weird one too, is like, I am sure that part of your research was going into other tools and finding like ones that stand out and a really good experience. And you're like, oh, I want to be that. Like I can tell you when I was IC for import, because I was not IC for everything I managed, but when I was IC for import, I was like, okay, what is the best experience for import that I've ever seen in my life? And that's hands down when I buy a new iPhone. I sometimes just want to buy a new iPhone just to do the magic, like move all your data over. So, like, what is guiding you here in terms of this is what I want to be? Here's like the best competitor that I found. This is like we're driving inspiration from.
Yeah. So when I first started, I tried to give examples of like I have a vision myself, not my team. I have a vision for like how a lot of the pressure could take off Nav by doing dashboards and save queries and views and some of these customizational objects. But what happened when I started is I came out of the gate strong with some of those ideas and they didn't align with what the team was finding in the research. And I overstepped a little bit. So because this is such an important thing to suss, and I've been working with Christy on this too, I can't do the same things as I did before. So I really want to make sure the team is empowered. So this North Star vision, Austin has come up with 6 compelling designs. I told you, like one of them was it's like a Slack layout. It's cool. It's all like pinned on the left. And he's going through and doing that in terms of what are the best navigational experiences that we are. And we actually even had one of our that we're testing. One of them is from Sid. Like Sid did a wireframe with bullets at the top or breadcrumbs at the top. And so we're testing his in line with all of the other 6. And so the team has such good ideas about how to take this that like the competitive analysis part is a little bit moot because like we can't just be like, oh, we want to be GitLab. Oh, or GitHub. We want to be Notion. Oh, we want to be Jira. Like we can't necessarily do that at this point because we have so much research that's already happened. And part of doing this North Star vision, Austin went through the last year of designers that had worked on this because Eric Schurter owned it for a while, then Tori owned it. He went through everybody's ideas and they even pulled some of those that he didn't even work on and put them into this testing. So this is a huge effort. And like, I agree, we should have some kind of maybe like going up against our competitor in some way, but it is very difficult to do that with this feature. And maybe I could just give more insight into these 6 mock-ups that happened so you could see them and see how different they are.
I wonder if you could like upvote them. Like this could be interesting too because I mean the problem that I see with the way that we do user research here is that we have a selective group of users and it's usually small. And then based on that outcome, we're making decisions. But we have millions of users. So I wonder if you can solicit feedback based on just like putting them here and say, here are some ideas we have. And like even put a little survey on the page and have people vote just for additional like quantitative input. It could be interesting.
Maybe. When they have the 2 finalists, they might be able to do, I know there's a comparative study they want to do where it's like, do you like A or B better? But with 6, it's hard. There's so many things they're testing to get it down to the 2, but maybe at that point we can maybe do some kind of a survey. But I wouldn't want they're so rigorous in the UXR department and they know their stuff. Like I just want to make sure that they're okay with it too and that it would be valid data in the end. But yeah, I think I could build this out just a bit more and like show those concepts. That's good feedback though. Is there anything else on Nav? I know we're over time and we didn't get into design system, but I do have time